So, Divorce Divorcing Society by the Philippine Social Conservative Movement. And this was made, this is from our position paper made by our team from the PSCM, Philippine Social Conservative Movement. We're the Philippine Social Conservative Movement. We're committed into preserving good moral values into a society. Actually, this position paper, just to give a little background, we already passed this to the Senate and to the House of Representatives. And now I will present it to you. So here are the topic outlines that I will discuss. Absolute divorce causes disorder in family and society. Absolute divorce is redundant and unnecessary. Absolute divorce contains two Trojan horses. Absolute divorce is unconstitutional. Absolute divorce will set a bad moral precedent. The majority of Filipinos oppose absolute divorce. And lastly, I will discuss the alternative proposal for the legislation. So, una-una, absolute divorce causes this dysfunction in the family and society. Several reliable studies around the world have been proven that absolute divorce have massive negative effects on the family. And we have gathered maraming mga sources. We have a lot of sources around this. So, yeah, with the exception of parents faces unresolvable marital violence, children fare better than parents. Consequently, society should make an effort to support healthy marriages and discourage married couples from divorcing. So I'd like to apologize because I might skip a lot of slides here for the sake of our time, for the sake of other speakers also, but we are willing to provide with our position paper and for the slides if you could ask our chairman, Brother JM, he can provide with you for us with the slides of our position paper on divorce. So we will just skip past these things. So yes, I'd like to go back. Sorry, I'm not very familiar with the slide, so I'll just show it here. So moreover, the MOTA 2019 sought to provide detailed information about the effects of divorce in the family lives. Children drop out of school and engage in addiction, commit sex before marriage, and develop delinquent behavior in the community they live in. Crimes, theft, and immoral acts of conduct stem from divorced families. Divorce leads custodial parents to the experience of major changes in their lives, including the change of residential arrangement, economic disadvantage, loneliness, associated in social network changes, and the roles strain associated with the risk overload that results from having to care children and work from outside of home. Divorced couples, residential arrangements, economic status, social networks, and role demands lead to deterioration in physical and mental health for majority of individuals following separation. As we can see from the studies that we have here, that it really affects children. Children really affects the child. And next, we'll present that absolute divorce is redundant and unnecessary. The existing Philippine law already offers legal remedies that provide solution beyond what absolute divorce can offer. And I'll discuss to you the family code, Article 55 of the family code, legal separation. So, as we discussed earlier in the previous talk, that there are really abuse that are happening to families. It could happen to men, it could happen to women, it could happen to children. But fortunately, we have the family code. We have the family code. Sometimes, pro-divorce people do not like to include this family code. So I'd like to read a couple of sections to this. So in the family code for legal separation, repeated violence, one of the grounds is repeated physical violence and grossly abusive conduct directed against the petitioner, a common child, or the child of the petitioner. So see, abuse, violence, physical violence, or abusive conduct. We could also say that uh, sometimes abuse can be mental, can be affecting one's mental health by verbal, by being abusive verbally, physical violence, or moral pressure to compel the petitioner to change religious or political affiliations, and drugs, addiction, and or habitual alcoholism of the respondent. Those are some of the grounds that we have in the family code. So as we can see, divorce, absolute divorce is unnecessary because we have the family code. And let us look at some more articles if time would provide. So this has been graciously provided to us by the team members of PSCM who did research for this. So yes, so there's also for rape, serious physical injuries. Okay, so those are the instances that those are the grounds that the family code provide for us for legal separation that sometimes people just overlook. So another thing is absolute divorce bill contains two Trojan horses. Two Trojan horses, as we know from the myths and legends, the Trojan horse, when they attacked the city of Troy, they hid in a horse that they presented it as a gift, but actually they are inside waiting to attack the city when the Trojans brought in the wooden horse. So what are those two Trojan horse? So there are two Trojan horse contained in Senate Bill number 2443 of the committee report 124 that can cause long-term societal and institutional problems, especially within judiciary, and they are the following: irreconcilable difference or irreparable breakdown of marriage as grounds for absolute divorce, and the best interest of the children standard. So irreconcilable marital difference. The pro-divorce camp like to use this term. What are irreconcilable marital difference? So let's read. Irreconcilable marital difference are actually grounds for no-fault absolute divorce, not fault-based divorce. Something that many public officials, legislators, civil society members, and religious denominations and ordinary citizens detest, as it will propagate the Vegas marriage. So here are some examples of irreconcilable difference. So from BuzzFeed.com, so we can see here, my great aunt divorced her husband for irreconcilable difference after he ate a strawberry from the plant she was growing. So irreconcilable difference. Sometimes it could be ridiculous talaga, ridiculous. So you can just cite something ridiculous and put it as irreconcilable difference instead of reconciling. For example, diba? For example, a man, diba? For example, a husband or a wife, he wants to be out of the marriage. So he could just make an excuse using irreconcilable difference when, for example, a cheater, an adulterer or adulteress in the marriage could use and just make up irreconcilable difference to divorce their spouse and go to their other partner. That when the divorce bill is passed, it could be abused, and we know, as we could see, the children are the one who will suffer for this abuse. Another example of Irreconcilable difference. Another ridiculous example is a man in India divorced his wife for cooking him instant noodles every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Judges say. So, yeah. So these examples, it might be funny, might be ridiculous in our sight, but let's remember, when we allow or pass the bill of divorce, when we make divorce to be the law, instead we are building a society that instead of reconciling, instead of choosing to be humble, would instead just choose, let's just be separate, let's just cut each other off, instead of learning how to reconcile with one another. We are building a low trust society where we do not trust each other when we pass the divorce bill. So yes, irreconcilable difference. So again, another argument of the divorce camp, that we could see that it is they always say that divorce is always for the best interest of the child. Well, not in most cases, because most cases it's not abuse. Most cases it's not yung physical harm or violence. And we could see from the previous studies that I showed you earlier that divorce is not the best case for the child. It's not for the best interest of the child always. So yes, I will move on for the sake of time. So the absolute divorce bill is unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional. Absolute divorce bill impugnates that the Constitution because the substance of the bill directly contravenes the purpose of Section 2, Article 15 of 1987 Constitution, and the numerous provisions of both versions of the bill encroach the powers of the Supreme Court, thus violating the doctrine of separation of powers. And you could look more into that. So the divorce bill is unconstitutional. And I would like to move on. In absolute divorce will set bad moral precedent. Marriage is important to our society. It is the foundation of the functional family. Absolute divorce is a threat to the foundation of the functional family. It attacks the element of the marriage that unites two different individuals into the bond that leads them to put effort into the relationship to satisfy both, and it also reduces marriage into another common relationship where one can get out when they no longer like the person they married. So yes, absolute divorce will set a bad moral precedent. And next is the majority of Filipino oppose absolute divorce. 7 out of 10 Filipino consider getting a divorce immoral. Also, here as provided for us by Social Weather Station, the support for divorce in the Philippines shrank from 65 to 50% in just a year. So the pro-divorce camp like to boast that, 50% Filipinos support divorce. Also, the media likes to promote divorce by saying 50% of Filipinos support divorce. But actually, it shrank from 65 to 50. As we can see that the majority of the Filipinos do not want divorce. Let's see. So only 40 of the favored passing the law that would legalize divorce, while a narrow majority or 51% of Filipinos were against it. So in conclusion, recommendation alternative proposals for the legislation. As I mentioned earlier, here's an alternative proposal. for divorce. Instead of passing the law of divorce, we should instead educate the people about the family code and make the family code more accessible to other people, to make it more accessible unto them, because sometimes it's hard for them to access those things, especially for those who are abused or have valid concerns. And to end my presentation, I'd like to share a story. Actually, I'm a teacher in a school, in an elementary school. I teach grades 1, 2, and 3 in a private school. And also, uh, one of my students, she lived in a blended home. What do you mean by blended home? Blended home means the father and mother are separated. And one time when we are practicing our readings, we came at the word. Well, my co-teacher uh, started teaching. Read they read together with the child the word love, and the child asked the teacher, "Love, what is love?" She asked the teacher, and the teacher became very sad because the child then casually said that her mom does not love her dad anymore. And as you can see from the story, that because she lived in a separated household, she is having trouble knowing the concept of love. So what's my point here? So divorce can ruin possible good marriage. Possible good marriage. Divorce can ruin possible good marriage that could last. When we when we oppose divorce, we're trying to preserve those families that could have positive and good marriages, good families, and that could benefit the child. So children are really affected by when the bill of divorce will be passed. So that is my presentation. Thank you very much for listening, giving me your time. So